Morning, students. So today we have one more session in advisory, that is nursing management of first stage of labor. Yesterday we have seen what are the management, what are the management in first stage of labor. So today we will see nursing management in first stage of labor. So the first stage of labor will extend from the signs of true labor pains to full cervical dilatation, and there is usually wide variation between the duration of primary and multipara. To avoid or prevent the complications during the labor to the mother, there should be an active management which include the monitoring of mother as well as the fetus. And objectives of management are prepare the mother for smooth delivery in second stage and monitor progress maternal and fetal condition. Care of the mother, preparation of the mother in labor room. So preparation of the labor room starting from admission to examination room, baby room and delivery room with all instruments, linens and drugs, and follow all universal precautions. And at the time of admission, what care we have to take to the mother we will see. So examination of the mother, which covers checking vital signs, general examination, abdominal examination every 4th hour, and type of blood group, hemoglobin, blood glucose levels, urine analysis is also taken every 4th hourly for urine protein and urine glucose. Then observations of the mother. Some mother may view the contractions experience as positive, motivating and life-giving force. Others may feel them as pain and may resist them. One woman may welcome the event with excitement because soon she will see her baby, and another may be glad the pregnancy is over. If the midwife concentrates her attention on the woman, she can help to absorb and deflect some of her anxieties. Then assessment of the mother by partogram. Yesterday we have seen clearly. I have told you in the previous video what is partograph and how to record in partograph. So vital signs like pulse rate, temperature must be recorded, then blood pressure, urine analysis and fluid balance also should be observed and recorded in the partogram. Then if there is any evidence of maternal distress like anxious look with sunken eyes, dehydration, dry tongue, strong smell in breath, rising pulse rate of more than 100 per minute and the heart dry degenerative often with offensive discharge and scanty high colored urine with presence of acetone. If any of these symptoms, signs and symptoms are there, then it indicates there is maternal distress. So immediately interventions have to be instituted. Then on the abdominal examination, we have to check the contractions. Yesterday I have told you how to check the contractions. The length, strength and frequency of contractions should be noted. The strength of contractions are judged by laying a hand on the uterus and noting the degree of hardness during a contraction and by timing its length. Contractions which are unduly long and are very strong and in quick succession give cause for concern as fetal hypoxia may develop. And the number of contractions in 10 minutes has to be recorded. So I told you in photograph how to record. Then pelvic grip. This pelvic grip also I told you how to examine the descent of the fetal head. Gradual disappearance of pores of the head, inciput and occiput which were felt. Then descent of the presenting part. During first stage, descent can be followed almost entirely by abdominal palpation. It is usual to describe the level in terms of fifth of the head which can still be felt above the brain. In the primary gravity, the fetal head is usually engaged before labor pains. If this is not the case, the level of the head must be estimated frequently by abdominal palpation in order to observe whether the head will pass through the brain with the help of good contractions or not. Then vaginal examination. So in vaginal examination, we will check the dilatation of the cervix, note the position of the fetal head, then degree of flexion, and note the station of the fetal head, color of the liquor, degree of molding of the head, and caput formation. Yesterday we have seen very clearly all these things. Then replacement of dilatation of the cervix is there, and descent, how far the descent of the fetus is happening in relation to ischial spines. So we have told you when the biparietal diameter is at the level of ischial spines, the station is 0, I told you. Then flexion. In vertex presentation, the progress depends on increased flexion. The flexion is assessed by position of the sutures and fontanelles. If the head is fully flexed, the posterior fontanelle becomes almost central. If the head is deflexed, both anterior and posterior fontanelles are palpable. And rotation, it is assessed by noting changes in the position of the fetus between one examination to the next examination. Then degree of molding of the head. Molding occurs first at the junction of the occipitoparietal bones and then between the parietal bones. Then monitoring of the fetus. The fetal heart. Fetal heart rate should be counted every minute in order to allow for variation. For 1 complete minute you have to count the fetal heart. And the rate of fetal heart should be between 120 to 160 beats per minute. Rhythm. Fetal heart rate along with its rhythm and intensity should be measured every half an hour in first stage and every 15 minutes in second stage or following rupture of membranes. The observation should be made immediately following uterine contractions. The count should be made for 60 seconds for routine clinical observation. Then continuous recording must be done in the form of cardiograph and maternal topograph in cardiograph apparatus. This presents a graphic record of the response of the fetal heart to uterine activity as well as information about its rate and rhythm. Anyway, when you are posted in labor room, you will come to know all these things. Then cardiotopograph, continuous monitoring. It usually combines a fetal topograph and maternal topograph, a fetal cardiograph and maternal topograph in a cardiograph apparatus. This presents a graphic record of the response of the fetal heart to uterine activity as well as information about its rate and rhythm. So this cardiotopograph provides information on baseline fetal heart rate. This is the fetal heart rate between uterine contractions. A rate of more than 160 beats per minute. A rate of more rapid than 160 beats per minute is termed baseline tachycardia, and a rate slower than 120 beats per minute is baseline bradycardia. Baseline variability. Electrical activity in the fetal heart results in minute variations in the length of each beat. This causes the tracing jagged rather than a smooth line. The baseline rate should vary by at least 5 beats over a period of 1 minute. Loss of this variability may indicate fetal hypoxia. Then baseline tachycardia. Detection of fetal heart rate in between contractions in excess of 160 beats per minute. This step of finding is always required for the impending effects of fetal hypoxia, maternal pyrexia, or dehydration and anxiety. Then baseline bradycardia. Slowing of the fetal heart rate below 120 is called baseline bradycardia. The congenital fetal heart lesions could be the probable reason precedes fetal death. And the beat-to-beat variations. The ECG of the fetus depicts smooth recorded pattern uninfluenced by uterine contractions. Loss of beat-to-beat variations is usually present in the fetal hypoxia and in the mothers under the effect of sedation. Then acceleration pattern. It is short quickening of the fetal heart rate with uterus contractions. It is due to changes in the baseline. Then deceleration pattern. Transient slowing of fetal heart rate causing a depression or dip to appear on the fetal heart rate graph is referred as deceleration pattern. Next, normal fetal heart rate pattern will have the following features, that is 120 to 160 beats per minute. Normal beat-to-beat variability and no deceleration. Acceleration of more than 15 beats per minute with fetal movements and uterine contractions. And response of the fetal heart to uterine contractions. The fetal heart rate will normally remain steady or accelerate during uterine contractions. A late deceleration begins during or after a contraction reaches its nadir after the peak of the contraction and has not recovered by the time that the contractions has ended. So fetal blood sampling. The fetus who has become hypoxic will also become acidotic as the pH of its blood is lowered. The normal pH of fetal blood is 7.23 and above. If it is falls below 7.25 in the first stage, careful surveillance is required, and acidosis can only be confirmed by an amniocentesis. Then amniotic fluid. The color of the amniotic fluid, meconium may be passed by in the amniotic fluid, and it is indicated by green color of the amniotic fluid as a result of meconium staining, and muddy yellow color or which is only slightly green may signify previous distress from which the fetus has recovered. And rhesus isoimmunization, golden yellow color shows an excess of bilirubin. And viscosity and odor, it is watery and lacks a strong odor. Infection is suspected if the fluid is thick, cloudy or foul smelling. Then amount, the expected amount will be 500 to 1200 ml. And polyhydramnios, when the fluid, amniotic fluid is greater than 2000 ml, and oligohydramnios if the amniotic fluid is less than 500 ml. Then fetal distress. It occurs when the fetus suffers oxygen deprivation and becomes hypoxic. Signs of fetal distress. Fetal tachycardia, which is an early sign of oxygen deprivation. Fetal bradycardia, fetal heart rate decelerations related to uterine contractions. Passage of meconium stained amniotic fluid. That all these indicate fetal distress. Then management of fetal distress. When signs of fetal distress occur, the midwife must immediately inform to the doctor and call for a doctor. If syntocin or oxytocin is being administered, it must be stopped and the woman placed in a favorable position, usually on her left side. If fetal distress is more than transient, delivery will be expedited. In the first stage of labor, this will necessitate cesarean section. This is one of the indications the mother should go in immediately to cesarean section. Then psychological care. Providing home-like atmosphere and privacy involving family, providing companionship, caring attitude and emotional support by touching and assuring words. You have to provide psychological care and with therapeutic touch and assuring words. And anxiety will affect the mother's perception and understanding. Therefore, the mother who is in labor should be welcomed and encouraged to feel at ease. A trusting atmosphere between the woman and her caregiver, a feeling of being among friends, and a knowledge of the skills required to cope with the stresses of labor set the scene and for a positive childbirth experience. Then emotional support. It is provided by exercising skill in imparting confidence, expressing caring and dependability, and being an advocate for the childbearing woman. The caregiver should display a tolerant, non-judgmental attitude, ensuring that the woman is accepted whatever her reactions and behavior may be. So, psychological care is also very, very important. Then prevention of infection. Universal precautions must be followed when you are taking care of the woman, and the skin and membranes, you should see that skin and membranes are intact. So that is why it is necessary to protect its integrity. This involves the avoidance of surgical wounds whenever possible, including perineal lacerations and episiotomy. The fetal membrane should be preserved intact unless there is positive indication for the rupture, which would outweigh the advantage of the protective functions. Then hygiene. A clean and body and environment will reduce the organisms which have access to the mother. This implies the need for barrier methods to be used when caring for women with any transmissible infections such as gastroenteritis, hepatitis or HIV infection. And pay attention to keep the perineum clean and dry. Also encourage the woman to wash her hands before and after taking anything orally. Then restriction of invasive techniques. Performance of vaginal examinations should be restricted as far as possible to reduce prevention of infections. Then maintain a general hygiene, combing of the hair, cutting the nails short, washing the mouth and shower bath if provision is there, and give hospital clothing. And you have to pay attention to keep the perineum clean and dry. Also encourage the woman to wash her hands before or after taking something orally. Then care of the bladder. Yesterday we have seen how it necessary the gradual descent of presenting part into the true pelvis compresses the urinary bladder and there are chances of the incontinence. So distended bladder is a precursor to the following complications. Suppose if the fetal head has descent and there is no the bladder retained the bladder retention is there. In such case, complications may occur like obstructed or prolonged labor, atonicity of uterine walls, difficulty in delivering the shoulders. The midwife should inspect the abdomen for presence of distension and see that there is no distension, and as and when necessary, Foley's must be passed and the bladder should be emptied. Immediately the catheter should be removed after emptying the bladder. Then an enema with soap and water or glycerin suppository traditionally given in early stage. This may be given if the rectum feels loaded on vaginal examination because but the enema neither shortens the duration of labor nor reduces the infection rate. But only for aesthetic purpose, yesterday we have seen for aesthetic purpose that uh, the bowel should be emptied. Then perineal shape. Perineal hair harbor organisms and may infect the woman's vulva during labor. That is why we have to prepare and shape the perineal area including mons, pubis, vulva and anal region to facilitate germ-free process of delivery. Rest and sleep. Next, rest and ambulation. If the membranes are intact, the patient is the mother is allowed to walk about. This attitude prevents vena cava compression and encourages descent of the fetal head. Ambulation can reduce the duration of labor, need for use of analgesia and improves maternal comfort. If, however, labor is monitored electronically and analgesic drug is given, the mother should be placed on bed. Then these are the different positions used for birth and labor. Standing position takes advantage of gravity during and between contractions. Standing and leaning forward, walking, sitting upright, semi-sitting. See all these positions we will see in second stage of labor. So the different positions are there. Diet or nutrition and give salty lemon water, soups and fruit juices and plenty of fluids to avoid dehydration and maintain adequate hydration. Nausea, breathlessness and pain due to progressive labor interfere in normal eating and drinking of the mother. And there is delayed emptying of the stomach in labor. Eating and drinking during labor will put women at an increased risk of regurgitation and aspiration of gastric contents. Low pH of the gastric content is a real danger if aspirated following general anesthesia. So food is withheld during active labor. Fluids in the form of plain water, ice chips or fruit juice may be given in early in labor. And infusion. Observe for the signs of dehydration like cracked lips, dry mouth or a parched tongue. Intravenous fluid with ringer solution is started where any intervention is anticipated or the patient is under general anesthesia. And relief of pain. There are pharmacological methods and non-pharmacological methods are there for relief of pain. Usually, non-pharmacological pain relieving measures are best suitable than pharmacological methods because some of the drugs painkillers should not be given, which may obstruct the sometimes which may they may reduce pain, but they are preferably not advisable. Usually in foreign countries, they can't tolerate pain. That is why they will be using these painkillers like Petidine. And non-pharmacological methods, homeotherapy, hydrotherapy and comfort measures. See, homeotherapy, aconitum solution relieves anxiety and fear arising out of pain during labor. And calicarbonicum is used to alleviate back pain. Gelsine solutions regulate different actions and ensure normal labor. And next is hydrotherapy. It reduces the length of labor by relieving the muscular spasm and pain. Main advantage is that there is less need of analgesics, opiates and oxytocins during labor. Other benefits include considerable reduction in incidence of genital tract trauma and less requirement of internal examination during labor. So this hydrotherapy usually mean the mother, the perineum. So the mother is made to sit in warm water and absorbed for preparation of labor. This because of this warm water will reduce or relieve muscular spasms and pain. This hydrotherapy nowadays have become very popular, and in some of the hospitals like Fernandez Institute, they are following most of these non-pharmacological methods to reduce pain. Next is comfort measures. The back rub, besides promoting muscle relaxation, contract the internal pressure on the spine of the woman. And during contractions, lower backache or localized pain may occur as a result of pressure that is exerted by the fetal head. The pain increases beyond the tolerance power of the mother if the fetus is in the posterior position. So, apply external pressure on the spine with equal force so as to contract the internal pressure of the spine. This is helpful in reducing the pain. Ask the woman to lie down in a lateral position so that maximum amount of pressure could be exerted over the back. Use of powder or lotion is beneficial in back rub that may reduce pain. Next, abdominal rub. It is a light circular massage using palm and fingers over the entire abdominal area either by the attendant or the significant others. This is done using one hand for feeling contractions and other hand for holding woman's hand. Abdominal rub gives the feeling of comfort to the woman. It improves the blood circulation by dilating the compressed blood vessels which have caused tissue anorexia. Next is effleurage. It is a method of applying pressure over the abdomen by laboring woman using both of her hands in a definite pattern. It is done mainly over the lower abdomen, especially symphysis pubis to just above her umbilicus. The woman uses all fingers of her both hands loosely separated, covers the entire abdominal area into circular patterns up and outwards from the umbilicus, down and around or in a reverse pattern. The circular movements of the fingers improve the circulation over the area, thereby reducing tissue hypoxia as well as decreasing the pain. Next, relief from the cramps. Leg cramps during labor result by pressure of the presenting part and the nerves of the extremities. The nerves passing through the obturator foramen get compressed between the pelvic bone and the fetal head. The leg cramps, usually severe in nature, can be relieved by straightening the legs and dorsiflexing the feet alternatively. Okay, so they have done some research on pain relieving methods in 2001. The problem statement was a study to evaluate the effectiveness of back massage and breathing exercises on pain relief on pregnant mothers during first stage of labor were selected in Government Hospital of Delhi. That was done by Rosamma Basil. Objectives of the study were to assess the intensity of pain in pregnant mothers during the first stage of labor before and after back massage and deep breathing exercises, and to evaluate the effectiveness of back massage and deep breathing exercises in reducing the intensity of pain as evident from the pain scores. So the conceptual framework adopted for the study was based on nursing process. The research approach was experimental research with pre-test, post-test control group design. Purpose random sampling technique was used to obtain adequate size of sample, and sample comprised of 26 experimental and 26 control group primary mothers during first stage of labor. A standard pain assessment tool, that is 0 to 10 numerical pain intensity scale, was used to collect the and data were analyzed using descriptive and inferential statistics. Sample characteristics were collected using intervention, technical physical examination. Following conclusions were made, that is, back massage and breathing exercises were found to be an effective non-pharmacological measure for significantly reducing the intensity of labor pains in primary mothers. It was a very effective. This back massage and breathing exercise were effective in reducing pain. Then coming to the nursing management, the first is anxiety related nursing diagnosis is anxiety related to labor and the birthing process. The interventions are orient the women and significant others to labor and birth unit and explain admission protocol to allay initial feelings of anxiety, assess women's knowledge, experience and expectation of labor, note any signs or expressions of anxiety, nervousness or fear to establish a baseline for intervention. Discuss the expected progression of labor and describe what to expect during the process to allay anxiety associated with the unknown. Actively involve women in care decisions during labor, interpret sights and sounds of environment and share information on progress of labor. to increase the sense of control and alleviate fears. Next, acute pain related to increasing frequency and intensity of contractions. The interventions are assess woman's level of pain and strategies that she has used to cope up with the pain to establish a baseline for intervention. Encourage significant others to remain as support person during labor process to assist with support and comfort measures because measures are often more effective when delivered by a familiar person. Instruct mother to use specific techniques such as conscious relaxation, focused breathing, effleurage, massage and application of sacral pressure to increase relaxation. Provide comfort measures such as frequent mouth care to prevent dry mouth, changing of gown or bed covers to relieve discomfort associated with diaphosis. Help women change position to reduce stiffness. Explain what analgesics and anesthesia are available for use during labor and birth to provide knowledge to help women make decisions about pain control. Next diagnosis is risk for impaired urinary elimination related to sensory impairment secondary to labor. And nursing interventions are palpate the bladder superior to symphysis on a frequent basis to detect a full bladder that occurs from increased fluid intake and inability to feel urge to void. Encourage frequent voiding and catheterizing if necessary to avoid bladder distension because it may impede progress of fetus down but cannot and may result in trauma to the bladder. It may avoid descent and assist to bath to avoid if appropriate, provide privacy and use techniques to stimulate voiding such as running water. Next diagnosis is risk for ineffective individual coping related to birth process. Interventions are constantly monitor events of second stage of labor and birth, including physiologic responses of woman and partner to ensure maternal, partner and fetal well-being. Provide ongoing feedback to mother to allay anxiety and enhance participation. Encourage women to experiment with various positions to assist downward movement of fetus. Continue to provide comfort measures and minimize distraction to decrease discomfort and aid in focus on the birth process. Ensure that women takes deep cleansing breaths before and after each contraction to enhance adequate gas exchange and oxygen transport to the fetus. Encourage women to push spontaneously when urge to bear down is perceived during a contraction to aid the descent and rotation of fetus. Encourage women to exhale, holding breath for short periods while bearing down. Have women to take deep breaths and relax between contractions to reduce fatigue and increase effectiveness of pushing it up. Have mother pant fetal head grounds to control birth of head. Explain to women what is expected in the third stage of labor to enlist cooperation. Have women maintain her position to facilitate delivery of the placenta. Next is fatigue related to energy expenditure during labor and birth. The nursing interventions are to educate women about need for rest and help her to plan strategies that allow specific time for rest and sleep to ensure that women can restore depleted energy levels in preparation for caring of the new infant and monitor women's fatigue level and amount of rest received to ensure restoration of energy. Next diagnosis is risk for deficient fluid volume related to decreased fluid intake and decreased fluid loss during labor and birth. The nursing interventions are monitoring fluid loss and vital signs, inspect skin turgor and mucous membranes for dryness to evaluate hydration status, administer parental fluid for physician and nurse orders to maintain hydration. Monitor the fundus of firmness after placental separation to ensure adequate contraction and prevent further blood loss. Offer oral fluids following orders of physician or nurse and decide of a laboring woman to provide hydration. Next, another important thing is maintenance of records and reports. Throughout the first stage of labor, the midwife must keep meticulous records of all events and of the woman's physical and psychological condition and condition of her fetus. While observing the progress of labor, she should be alert for signs of second stage of labor. Okay. So these are the nursing management during first stage of labor. In next session we will see one more topic.